Okay, everyone, thank you for waiting. Let's go ahead and officially start. Hello, everyone, and Happy New Year. I hope you had an incredible holiday season. I'm Rose Gerber, the Director of Patient Advocacy and Education for COA, and I'm really excited to kick off our 5th year of our Advocacy Chat series. We started this in 2020 as a way to keep you connected with us and to share important updates with you. And it's been a very successful series, and it's successful because we have participants like you. Again, the focus of these chats is to provide you education in a very fast format. And we formally call these chats educational conversations on cancer advocacy and policy. And I like to jokingly refer to them as speed advocacy, which is kind of like speed dating. We give you a lot of quick information, and hopefully you're interested enough and keep coming back. So we are very happy again that you continue to join us. The majority of our topics do focus on healthcare policy, which is going to be the focus of our topic today. But we also know that you have other interests that are important to you as patients, as providers, as caregivers. So we keep our schedule interesting, and we have a variety of topics ranging from everything, including financial navigation, survivorship, getting to know the members of the community oncology scene, all the people that you might not interact with on a regular basis, like pharmacists and nurses and oncologists who you do engage with a lot, but basically a lot of really great information. But for those of you who are joining us today, you know that every January we have the privilege of having Ted Okon, our executive director, and Nick Ferreyros, our managing director of policy, advocacy, and communications, start the year off by telling us what they see. They're in Washington, D.C., literally, not just virtually, on the Hill, and they're interacting with the highest levels of government. So they definitely have a pulse on what's happening. And they're going to give us the crystal ball view of what's happening in 2025, what we can expect from the new administration. So now I'm going to turn it into two experts in this area. Welcome, Ted and Nick.
Thanks, Rose. And Happy New Year to everybody. Wish you all the very best of the new year that we've now jumped into. So what does the crystal ball says? This crystal ball says we have no idea what's going to happen. I mean, the bottom line here is that if you all know the fact that the Republicans control the White House, have a very slim majority in the Senate, and have a razor thin majority in the House. And we've already seen how that's played out at the end of last year going into this year. So the big issue here, and I think the murkiness of the crystal ball is the fact that the Senate has to confirm the HHS secretary who's been nominated. That's RFK Jr. and Dr. Oz, who's been nominated to head CMS up. Huge implications of that. Huge implications of that. In addition to that, you have the Doge brothers over here, Musk and Ramaswamy, who are going to say we should just carve up some of these agencies and basically move people out. That has profound implications of what could happen staffing-wise at HHS and CMS. But it's a very big deal that we're dealing with. I would suspect, unless anything comes out of left field, and certainly a lot of things have come out of left field, that both RFK Jr. and Dr. Oz will get confirmed. But again, we don't know that. And that will be those confirmation hearings, which will be held first by the Senate Finance Committee that has jurisdiction over Medicare. We'll see what happens with that. I will tell you, and I'm going to hand it over to Nick to go through specific issues that we're looking at, but I will tell you that at the end of last year, as you know, there was a continuing resolution to keep the government operating. In the original CR and the deal that Speaker Johnson, and he is the speaker again, made with basically the minority leader, Hakeem Jeffries, they had a bipartisan deal, and that CR basically would have included a number of provisions that have an implication for cancer care. It would have had a number of provisions related to PBM and PBM transparency, some really important things. There would be what's known as the doc fix, sort of mitigating the cut to physicians in terms of their payment. and some other really important things. In addition to that, what did survive at least is provisions on telehealth, which have come into place during the pandemic that have allowed basically oncologists, all physicians, but oncologists, to not have to drag patients in when a telehealth visit and refilling their prescription can suffice. So with that, we do expect, and we can talk a little bit about it, about what will happen going forward, given that some of those provisions were taken out of the CR. Why were they taken out? Because you probably know that I call him President Musk basically turned around and basically said, hey, this is a no-go, this deal. The deal had to be refashioned. It had to be narrowed down. And a lot of those provisions came out of it, which is really unfortunate because they do have direct ramifications on cancer care. So, Nick, why don't you take it away and at least talk about some of the specific areas or topics that we're looking at this year that are high on our radar?
Sure. Thanks, Ted. Hey, Happy New Year, everybody. Yeah, as Ted said, it was a tumultuous end of the year. But what I remind everybody is, 2 years ago, we were nowhere near as close on PBM reform. We were nowhere as far along on the dialogue around 340B. We did not have any serious discussion over a meaningful doc fix for reimbursement payments. So, what you're seeing is the result of decades of investment in advocacy and education and energy from COA and also, frankly, lots of other specialty societies. But really, COA's not to toot our own horn, but has been leading the charge. So, despite the fact that we went to bed after the budget failed to pass several of these big things, unhappy we are. Going into this new year with I am hopeful, and that's not something that people always accuse me of being is glass half full, but I am hopeful that we are going to be able to make some good progress this year on a lot of our issues. It's going to be a very busy first 100 days. Ted talked about the confirmation hearings. We've got a budget that's running out in March. President Trump has made, I think, 57 day one promises, including several really big issues that are going to take the spotlight. You've got immigration reform, you've got tax reform, you've got a lot of big things. Now we may be getting the Gulf of America. And as a Texan, as a proud Texan, that concerns me. But that we've got a lot. There's going to be a lot happening in the next 3 months, and part of our job at COA and part of the job of the community is to ensure that our issues stay top of mind and are not forgotten. Ted, I wanted to ask you a question, maybe to sort of help set the stage, and I'll talk about our issues and the gap survey in a second. But what timeline-wise, right? Everyone talks about the first 100 days. What are the next 3 months going to look like? What do you anticipate them looking like? What are some of the big things that are going to happen?
Yeah, well, first of all, Nick, good question. I had dinner with Speaker Johnson probably about 4 months ago, 5 months ago now, and he said he was very optimistic of taking the White House and keeping the House and taking the Senate, and said he's not going to make the same mistake that prior Congresses, when the Republicans controlled the Congress and the administrative and the executive branch, that made, which was to dilly-dally. He said, we're going to come out of the box fast. And you've already heard that. You've heard it out of the president. The big issues, you said it, are taxes and immigration. In fact, I believe today there are a number of members of Congress that are down at Mar-a-Lago talking to be President Trump when he's sworn in, that basically about taxes, and specifically the SALT tax, which is the tax that affects a lot of people in New Jersey, New York, and otherwise that have high state income taxes. So the bottom line is that the Republicans have the ability to use what's called reconciliation. That is a vehicle that in the Senate allows a simple majority as opposed to a 60-vote majority to overcome a filibuster. If you recall, in the IRA, you probably heard everybody that the Democrats used reconciliation as a technique to basically get to pass the IRA. So what's going to happen here, I believe, and again, that they're going to come roaring out of the box that they're already writing the legislation involving taxes and immigration. Reconciliation is a vehicle, though, that it has to be dollars driven. It has related to a budget, so they're related back to that again. And there have been some big promises made. The president has made promises about obviously not only taking taxes and not taxing tips, but not taxing bonuses. I mean, that's just trillions of dollars. I don't know how that's going to happen, but I think that's going to be a big push. Originally, there were going to be two reconciliation vehicles. I won't get into the arcane, what reconciliation is about and all of that and get mired in the muck. But the bottom line is you get two shots at the apple. But now it looks like there's going to be one reconciliation bill. It's unclear in that reconciliation bill whether there will be healthcare provisions or there will be a separate healthcare bill that they will try to get done on a bipartisan basis as opposed to ramming through reconciliation. I will tell you that right now, at least, the scuttle and the word is that they will keep the healthcare bill separately. They will try to get bipartisan agreement. There is a lot of agreement on issues like PBMs and some of the other issues out there, DocFix and all of that. So here's what the calendar looks like. March 20th or so, they basically have to pass a budget or some reconciliation. It will be a budget that probably that will basically get the government, keep the government open. They will look at reconciliation, how that ties in. We will see. And then the idea is either in the reconciliation package having these provisions that Nick will touch upon, some of the issues that we're really into that will go into that, or whether there'll be a separate bipartisan health bill. Nick?
Thanks, Ted. And, I think one thing to remember, too, going into the new Congress is the power dynamics at play. We've seen this before. The Republicans, even though they're going to control all three branches of government, it's a razor slim majority. And we talk about this country like it's a two-party system of Democrats and Republicans, but there's actually factions within each party in both wings, left and right and center, and so that means negotiated consensus. That means some of these wings have a lot of power, particularly when you have razor slim majorities. So it's not necessarily smooth sailing. Right now it is, but one common saying when you have a second-term president coming in is that they are a lame duck from day one because they already are out. They can't be reelected. So everyone in Congress is now thinking for themselves for the future. We'll have to see how the power dynamics play. I mean, everything has been a wild card with President Trump. He wields enormous influence in the party and in Congress. Yeah, and so there's a lot there to remember. And then one other comment on the RFK and Oz nominations is so often we fixate on the headline names, but it's the people. It's the next 2 or 3 levels down that really make a difference in implementing policy and implementing sort of the nitty gritty of all the policies that we care about. So from the Inflation Reduction Act to the physician fee schedule to oversight and regulation of 340B and PBMs and insurers, all of those things tend to, they're not just, it's not like RFK is line item reviewing every policy that comes out of the government. So those are also people that we really want to pay attention to.
Yeah, Nick, let me, what I was going to say is maybe what we can just sort of touch upon and Rose is the fact that first of all, PBM legislation, there is incredible bipartisan. We worked very hard on this. I will toot our horn to say that we've been all over this. We first started talking about PBMs when nobody knew what they were. So there's incredible movement there. And the new chair of the Finance Committee, Senate Finance Committee, Chairman Crapo, has promised to start moving some of these things. So I think you will basically see some big movement on PBMs. They're going to have to deal with the doc fix. The last time they did it retroactive, I think the same thing will happen here, and that will be tied into the March package. There's a lot of focus now on part of the problem fueling healthcare are hospitals, and I'm not just talking about what you think we're going to say next, which is 340B, but also the different payment rates at hospitals versus the physician's office. In fact, CMS just published a study that they did in Health Affairs. We'll put it up on the website tomorrow that basically shows the acceleration in inflation in the hospital sector. So I think you're going to see more emphasis. For the first time, we've actually seen a bipartisan Senate working group on 340B. If you enact site neutrality, meaning you pay for the same procedure, like the first hour of chemotherapy, as you do in the hospital as in the physician's office, there are huge savings there. They're going to be looking for savings. So I think you're going to see some movement there. The chairman of the Senate Help Committee, Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions, is Senator Dr. Cassidy. He has been a long proponent of actually fixing 340B, and 340B is in the jurisdiction of the Health Committee as opposed to Senate Finance. So I see movement on PBMs. I see movement on certainly the doc fix, and maybe even trying to fix the thing and not just patch it. I see movement on definitely on site payment neutrality, because there's just too much money there to be used for other things. And I possibly even see some movement on 340B. The driving force between that Senate bipartisan working group on 340B was Senator Thune, who is now taken over for McConnell as the majority leader. So you get the majority leader that basically has pushed legislation related to 340B. So the one other thing I want to say is it's going to be very interesting to see how a Republican HHS CMS deals with the IRS and drug negotiations. There aren't any Republicans that are basically in favor of this. And it will be very interesting because there is a law in place of what they have to do and when they have to do it. But they can do a lot of things to sort of slow that down and scuttle it and reevaluate it. In fact, Senator Crapo, who, as I said, is chairman of the Senate Finance Committee, has come out and said, we're going to take up the IRA again. So stay tuned.
But, Ted, I think also don't forget the last Trump administration, we had the MFN proposal, right? And you often talk about rereading the art of the deal and try to understand how President Trump likes to think about negotiations. And we've heard him on the campaign trail. We've heard him talk a lot about us getting the short end of the stick as far as drug pricing goes. So IRA may be on the chopping block, or administratively they can gum up the system bureaucratically, but that doesn't mean negotiations are necessarily out of the realm of possibility going forward.
Yeah, Nick, good point. But what's different this time around, which is really interesting, already President Trump has said, I don't know who the middlemen are, but we're going to take out the middlemen.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
What that means is that everybody's been telling him that the problem are these PBMs. And if you look at it, instead of the first time around, when it was the pharmaceutical industry and we pay more for drugs, and you hear more of that than other countries, you're going to still hear that. But the bottom line is that he's now talking about the middlemen.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think you will see some more pressure there. And by the way, if the way to solve, maybe the way he's solving basically the problem of we pay more than other countries is you basically annex those other countries, make Canada another state and New Greenland another state and Mexico and everybody else. Maybe that's the way we're dealing with it.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, but I mean, that was one of our many issues with the IRA, and there are many, is that it did nothing to address PBMs and sort of these other forces that are fueling drug prices such as 340B. So it's good to see that focus on there, and as you said, hopeful. One thing we didn't talk a lot about, Ted, but I know has been our priority is the Stark mail order issue.
Yeah.
And I know going into the year, there's a lot. We're going to be focusing a lot on that going forward. Where do you see the crystal ball with that right now?
Yeah, before I answer, I'll do the real politician thing, and not that I'm going to avoid it, but I just want to go back to the IRA a minute, Nick, and I want to say one of the problems and when I testified to the Ways and Means Committee, as you know, I said that I'm not going to take the pharmaceutical company line that basically says it's going to stop innovation and all that. But one of the things we've made a big deal about, and if you think about it, is when a drug gets approved for cancer, and that's the nature of cancer, it's typically approved for one indication. Then you add on indications as you go on. The last indications that usually get approved are pediatric indications. And so if you're near the point where you're going to get your drug negotiated, sort of knocked down in price, what's going to suffer are basically the pediatric indications. And that, to me, for a lot of reasons personally, is very, very scary. So we need to think differently about the IRA. Look, some of the aspects of the IRA, $2,000 cap that's gone in for people, great, really good things. But we need to think about it. Now, back to Stark. So as everybody should know, basically spent a lot of time getting the House of Representatives. No one thought we could do it. Minor miracle of getting the House to actually pass legislation, which would stop CMS from declaring that this is a Stark violation if a practice delivers a drug or even has a caregiver, family member, someone else in the patient come in to pick up their oral cancer drugs. So we did that. We were trying to get that basically into the CR, even past the Senate, but that CR blew up. So where we are now is we're going to look at the two sponsors in the House to ask them to basically reintroduce the bill that was passed by the House. It has a little moderation to it. Get that passed in the House, work with the Senate to get that passed or get it on one of these health vehicles. In addition, this is important. Again, we're going to have a new HHS and CMS. And we have worked with our lawyers to basically put together a document. Actually, we'll be working on it by the end of the week that basically says CMS can do this. Okay, here's how they can rescind. Here's what they can do legally. And I really believe, because there have been some discussions, I can't go into it behind the scenes, but basically the fact that this is absolutely crazy. I do not believe a new administration is going to want to go into this and basically stopping cancer patients from getting their drugs. So we'll see. So two ways of going about it. One way is the legislative through Congress. The other is the regulatory through HHS and CMS, and we're pursuing both of those.
Yeah, there's good momentum, still good momentum. And that's, again, going back to what I opened with is, while the end of the year was a disappointment, that momentum continues into the new year and the new Congress.
And let me just add, Nick, that the amount of lobbying, the intensity with members of Congress that we did on the Stark thing had not just the focus on this particular issue, but it broadened the focus on cancer care. We talked so much about cancer care, what's happening, what we need to do, the progress that we've made, but basically more progress that needs to be made, what the limitations are, what the problems are, the hurdles, the PBMs, otherwise. So it was really a vehicle also to upping the whole discussion on cancer care. As we like to say, Rose says it all the time, that yeah, we want a cure, but our focus is on the care. And by focusing on the care, you can end up with the cure through clinical research and other things.
Yeah. And all of those conversations were huge reminders about the importance of showing up. This is one of those wedge issues it's so logical. It makes so much sense, but people, even after a year of advocacy, you still are doing fundamental education on it. I remember sitting in offices in November talking through this. And this is an advocacy chat. A lot of our audience is patient advocates, and sort of, the real importance of never giving up and always being there, because if you're not there, you're not advocating and talking about your issues, other people are.
Right.
And or they're not understanding it. I mean, we had many people in there spreading untruths about what this was about and or misconceptions, and we had to go in there and really do fundamental education even after more than a year of doing that. So hugely important to show up. In our last few minutes, Ted, I wanted to talk a little bit about our prescription for healthcare reform and future recommendations. I'll tee you up. This is something that we've been working on for over a year with our team, our members, consultants, and stakeholders. And this is a sort of big magnum opus that we have spent way too much time on, but it's probably going to be about 50 pages long when it's done. It is a 5-point blueprint for the 119th Congress, 120th Congress, and beyond. Pointing to very specific legislative fixes in five different buckets of areas that we want to talk about. Hospitals and health system consolidation, insurers and pharmacy benefit managers, and drug pricing and shortages. And we go through all of these issues with very clear diagnosis of what the problem is, what's happening, then breaking down different policy recommendations that we have compiled from existing legislation, from existing proposals, and then backed up with data and evidence. And it is a very good blueprint and roadmap for where we think we can go to sort of cure what ails a lot of our system and our practices. And Ted,
Yeah, and I'll just add that, the whole idea is this is from the perspective of cancer care. Cancer care has so many issues related to it, related to reimbursement, shortages, all these other things, that it gives us a pretty broad vantage point of saying, what do you need to do basically to reform healthcare that affects other areas of medicine and everybody else. So the focus is on the patient, focus is on the impact of the patient. But as Nick said, the whole idea is to say, hey, what's wrong? Meaning, what's the diagnosis, and what's the treatment going to be? And that's where we're focused on this. We are going to release it the first Wednesday, which is February 5th. In February, we're going to basically have in the morning a Hill and Media Day to release. And then later in the day, starting at noon, is our State of Community Oncology, and held at the National Press Club, and we'll be focusing on that there. It's going to be available in both, hard copy, printed copy, as well as a PDF. So you all have a chance to get it. But this is a big deal. I just said one more thing, and I know we're running out of time, but basically we did this. We started this and came up with this idea. Why? Because there's so many issues, and a lot of the issues are interrelated. For example, we never thought PBMs would be taking advantage of 340B. They are. They see the huge dollars. So they're diverting basically funds that should go to patients in need that are basically going into their own coffer. So the bottom line is that because there were so many issues, we said, you know what? We need to put this in a framework as opposed to constantly talking about, PBM and Stark and 340B and site neutrality and doc fix, drug shortages, huge impact on patients. And we really didn't know at the time that we would have a dramatic change in basically the administration and also in the Congress and the Senate with one party controlling. But regardless of whether that or not, but the fact that there are new people that are going to be in the executive branch, even some new people in the Congress, some existing people that have moved up, that it's really important. This becomes more important than ever. So we're pretty proud of it. We're just finishing up so that it can ultimately be go through the system and be printed and all of that kind of stuff. But stay tuned.
Thank you so much, Nick and Ted. This was incredible, very comprehensive overview, all in a speed advocacy format. And this is just a reminder to all of you, please continue to visit our websites. From Ted's opening comment when he was talking about the continuing resolution, we have press releases on that. You can go back and read some more to all of the current information happening. we're just very excited for the year ahead. And we're also demonstrating that, COAs always pride ourselves on looking forward and being progressive and continuing to evolve. And we're taking you along with us because we're all in this together. So thank you very, very much. And Nick, if I could have the last slide, please.
Sure thing. Sorry about that. There we go.
So we're always looking for common ground, whether in our personal lives or our professional lives. And if there's one thing that every single cancer advocacy group has in common is we're all looking for someday, hopefully, to get rid of cancer. And the Prevent Cancer Foundation has been a leader in this space. We're very proud to have partnered with them in different areas. So next month is National Cancer Prevention Month, which is a perfect opportunity for us to have a special guest from the Prevent Cancer Foundation. Caitlin Gerber will be our advocacy chat guest. And please join us, and you'll get to hear about all the incredible work that they're still doing after over 3 decades in existence at the community level, and also the impact that they're making globally. And not only are they doing work around preventing cancer, but they're also in very new spaces, including working on healthcare disparities, which is a topic that's also very important to COA. So thank you, everyone. Happy New Year, and I will see you next month. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rose.
Bye.
Bye.